Hey, it's your man Dukes here, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the top 12 tight ends for 2021. These are the consensus rankings for the Undroppables, which you can find over at theundroppables.com. Also, before I get going here, make sure that you subscribe to this channel if you're not already. We're always dropping knowledge here at the Undroppables. Don't miss any of it. Hit that subscribe button. All right, first off, a guy that really is in a tier of his own when it comes to the tight end rankings and should be a first round selection in almost every format. That's Travis Kelce. He was able to put up 20.9 fantasy points per game in 2020, which is a full 3.5 points better than the player coming in at number two, Darren Waller. To put that in perspective, the gap between the fourth ranked tight end, Mark Andrews, and 18th ranked tight end, Dalton Schultz, was only 3 points. So half a point better than that gap was how much better Kelce was than any other tight end. That is the advantage that he gives you at the tight end position. At number two in the Undroppables rankings is Darren Waller, who I just mentioned, finished second in fantasy points per game last season. There's no reason to think he can't repeat what he did or even top it in 2021. Here's a quote from Gruden. Now, we've got to get some of our young receivers to take pressure off him, and we've put some more things in our playbook. We are going to be a lot more demanding of Waller going forward. We've got to continue to try to probe some matchups and get him places where we can get him the ball, end quote. Now, Darren Waller has 197 catches over the last two seasons, and in this quote from Gruden makes it pretty obvious that he can expect to see just as much work this time around. He is firmly in the second spot of the rankings with a ceiling for fantasy production that is as high as anyone's. Waller has become the number one target in this offense and will benefit from some of these younger players taking a step forward in their development. And like Lil Wayne would say, no ceilings. Number three on the list is George Kittle, who was banged up last year but has shown us plenty of times before he is the premier player in the 49ers offense when he is on the field. Last year, Kelce was able to break Kittle's record for single season receiving yards by a tight end, while Kittle was sidelined with an injury for most of the year. Look for him to come out with some fire this year after that injury prevented him from competing, which he loves to do as much as any football player I've ever watched. So, Kittle, come back loading. At number four, we've got the first rookie on the list, and this is no average rookie. He is the highest drafted tight end of all time, Kyle Pitts. The reason he is so high in the rankings as a rookie is because of the ceiling he brings to the position. See, he's just not your typical tight end. He's going to move all around this offense and often act as more of a wide receiver than a tight end. With Julio Jones out of town, this is going to be the Ridley and Pitts show in Atlanta. Now, the downside. In order for him to finish as high as he's being taken in drafts, Pitts will basically have to put together the best rookie season of all time, statistically. No pressure, right? Well, the position is notorious for having slow starts in the NFL. With that said, if any player has the ability to break through that stereotype, it's Pitts. Now, number five is a player that I absolutely love this year, and that's TJ Hockenson. He was tied for top six among tight ends in fantasy points per game a year ago and is entering his year three season as the top target in the Detroit offense. This is a player with an upward trajectory and an easy path to high volume. He was awarded for his play at the tight end university camp this summer by his NFL peers. If those guys think he's a great tight end, he's a great tight end. Also, this year, he will have Jared Goff as his quarterback, who has always depended on his receivers making yards after the catch. So I expect a lot of underneath routes for Hawk, and he has the talent to make big plays with the ball in his hands. The stars have aligned for him to fully break out this year. So he is a player I'm trying to hitch my wagon to when I miss out on those top guys. One last point I'd like to make. Head coach Dan Campbell is a former tight end himself. If there's anyone that can appreciate what the big man can bring to the passing game, surely it's Dan Campbell. All right, so number 6, we've got Mark Andrews, who in a lot of ways is really in the opposite position of TJ Hockenson. With all the additions the Ravens have made to their passing game, it is hard to expect the type of volume for Andrews that Hawk should get. However, the Ravens offense should be a lot more efficient and score a lot more points than the Lions. So Andrews will continue to be one of Lamar's favorite targets in the red zone. And if he's going to have a big year, it's where he's going to make his due. I see a lower ceiling and floor for Andrews compared to the other players that are higher on this list because he's just going to have to make the most of his touches in this run first offense to get statistically to where these other guys can based on their volume. So number 7, a player that broke out last season and finished as a top 5 player at the position, Logan Thomas. He's now your average 30-year-old tight end, being a converted quarterback that really only saw a full year of playing time for the first time this past season. He's being drafted in the 11th round after players like Noah Fant, Tyler Higbee, and Mike Gesicki. Personally, I see him as a steal at that price, given his potential to continue his development into a better tight end. He probably won't see the same amount of targets in what is looking like an improved offense, but he was second among tight ends with 15 catches in the red zone last year. That's going to be a big part of his role, and if this offense is scoring more, that's just more opportunities for him. Also, the guy's still pretty raw at the position. He has a really stellar athletic profile. Washington just signed him to a 3-year extension, so clearly they've got a lot of belief in him. Now coming in at number 8 in the rankings is Dallas Goedert, who finished around that range last year, and as of right now, he is still joined by Zach Ertz in the Eagles tight end room. As long as that's the case, Goedert will have some limited upside. He also didn't necessarily break out during the weeks Ertz was out this past season, and just recently, Goedert failed a conditioning test at practice. Coming in at number 9 in the rankings is Noah Fant, who I really love him as a player, but I love a lot less for fantasy. He is an incredible athlete. He came in, played at a really high level as a rookie, but he got banged up some last year and just never really got going. The problem for Fant in fantasy is that this offense just has so many talented receiving options, but a notable lack of talent at the quarterback position. Fant is stuck competing for inefficient throws in an offense that really wants to establish the run with Melvin Gordon and rookie Javonte Williams. That will limit Noah Fant's upside. And then at number 10, we've got Robert Tonyan, who has the added benefit of catching passes from Aaron Rodgers for what seems like one more year. Now, the downside here is that last year, his fantasy production that allowed him to finish as a top 5 tight end was largely dependent on the 11 touchdown receptions he brought in, which tied Kelce for the most among tight ends. If he can repeat that touchdown performance, obviously he can be a solid option again, but we would expect that number to regress, and Tonyan likely just won't get the amount of volume that he needs to finish as high as he did a season ago. The 11th ranked tight end for 2021, we've got Mike Gesicki, who flashed some great plays and athleticism last year, but was just not very consistent. He has finished as a top 12 tight end on the week just 9 times in his last 31 games. The Dolphins added Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle this offseason, so it's not very likely Gesicki gets more opportunities. I would expect more of the same in 2021. And coming in at the 12th spot in our rankings, it's Rams tight end Tyler Higbee. Some people were very high on Higbee this time a year ago after he had a really nice stretch of games in 2019. Well, 2020 ended up being pretty disappointing for him as he did not finish in the top 15 at the position. This offseason was pretty kind to him, though, for fantasy purposes. Gerald Everett left for the Seahawks. Matthew Stafford came to town. Higbee could have a nice post-hype mini breakout in 2021. So that's been it. That's the top 12 rankings at the tight end position for 2021. Make sure you go to theundroppables.com to see the full rankings, catch up on all the recent articles and podcasts. Again, thank you for watching, and make sure, if you haven't, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you later.